Hey everyone, Shrike here. So I've just beaten Girls Frontline 2 and I wanted to give my review on it now. I'm going to rate it on the following: visuals, combat, gacha system, gameplay, UI, free to play versus pay to win, and story. Before I go any further, if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. I'm Shrike. I cover gacha games. The extent to which I cover them will largely depend on whether I think it's worth my time or not. So if you like gacha games, or this game in particular, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my videos. First, I'd like to share my experience re-rolling in this game. I've never re-rolled more than twice in any game, but I tried it this time, and honestly I can say it was not worth it. I spent 24 hours re-rolling over 40 different rolls, and I got 3 SSRs. First was a weapon, the second was a character we get for free, and then finally a character that I felt alright keeping. There is absolutely a kind of sunk cost fallacy related to re-rolling. And if you're not familiar with that, it's when you have trouble quitting a game because you feel like the time and money you spent on it will have been a waste. Well, it applies to re-rolling too, where the longer you re-roll, the higher the bar can get for the account that you feel is worth keeping. You feel like you've been re-rolling so long you can't just settle for a mediocre account. It wouldn't be worth it. And I found myself in that position, so I decided I would keep whatever account my next SSR was. And it turned out to be Mosin Nagant, not one we get for free. Well, I doubly regret spending so much time on it because it wasn't 2 days later that I had 5 other SSRs to add to my collection. See, the game doesn't end when you stop re-rolling. That's not all you'll ever get. That's when the game actually starts. If I had just settled for my first SSR account, even if it was the weapon, I probably would have summoned something much better within the next 24 hours of actually playing the game and having fun. But instead I spent that 24 hours re-rolling, not having fun. Perhaps in a game with better rates it would have been worth it, but I'll never recommend anyone re-roll on a game with these rates. It's just not worth it to me. Which is a good time to cover the gacha system. Like I said, the rates are pretty bad, but that's actually a good thing in many ways. It makes what you do get feel special. Another game I play is called Starseed. Practically throws SSRs at you. Everyone playing probably has 5 or 10 copies of every character, which is great in its own right, but certainly doesn't feel special when you finally pull one. But back to Girls Frontline 2. The banners themselves are super clear to understand. Limited, weapon, standard, and the beginner. They aren't given overly complicated names or functionalities like in some games. And the visuals, let's talk about the visuals. This could be its own video here. Gacha pull animations. You've got to have anticipation, you've got to have that early tell, and the big reveal. And some banger music to hype you up. Genshin is famous for having exciting pull animations. ZZZ does a great job with the music, not so much the visuals, and I think Girls Frontline 2 is better than ZZZ as far as visuals go, but not quite as good as Genshin or Wuwa, and definitely worse than ZZZ for music, so it averages out to be pretty good. Possibly tied with HSR, though the rainbow ticket tell is much harder to spot than an excited girl jumping up and down. Moving on to general visuals, we're going to have a much different opinion. This game is top-notch, unmatched. The character models are absolutely spectacular, and they somehow managed to make anime girls fit into a military aesthetic. I'm sure it has something to do with how these girls behave, how they hold their weapons, how they move, the seriousness with which they take their job. It's not campy, it's not bubbly, it's also not pure degeneracy. There's plenty here for the aspiring gooner, but it isn't over the top. None of these characters have comically large booba that you can't even take the story seriously, like in games like Horizon Walker or Haze Reverb. It's well balanced. Most of the heavily scandalous content you need to opt into by either purchasing skins or visiting the dorm, which I guess is a good segue into gameplay. The dorm system is fantastic. Obviously created so we can leer at our waifus, but they actually made it serve a function beyond that, which I think is great. Besides your typical campaign, which is very fun with incredible cinematics mixed in with live 2D dialogues, you've got a ton of additional game modes. You've got all your supply dungeons, and then the multitude in combat simulation, including the PvP and boss fights. And then there's the event page where you've got even more content. And in between these, you can be sending your units on missions in the dispatch section, which is actually a lot more involved than most. There's a dispatch shop. You can even level up the dispatch itself. I haven't run out of things to do this entire time. I've only ever stopped because I've run out of stamina. And let's talk about the UI now. All of these different game modes are super easy to access right from the main screen. They're all clearly labeled, except I wish the dispatch wasn't in the public area tab. It seems out of place. I would have liked to have it right on the home screen, maybe small, right by the patrol, event, and commission tabs. And I think the mail could be more easily accessible too, but that might just be me being nitpicky. And speaking of patrol, event, and commission and mail, you get a lot of rewards in this game, and either pulls or premium currency are often some of those rewards. So the free-to-play ability of this game is pretty good. And the fact that they're willing to just give us a 10 pull in the mail because they had a good launch and they just felt like it is a great sign for their continued generosity. The story I unfortunately can't speak to because I've skipped every cutscene and dialogue, having been assured that I could rewatch it all later at any point. However, I have since been unable to find the story recap section, so I may have to make a second account just to experience the story, unfortunately. From what I did see, the cinematics were fantastic and the tone was pretty dark, like I like. But I was so eager to get to the combat, I skipped it all. Speaking of which, the combat was perfect, a beautiful balance of manual and auto functionality. As busy as I am, I opted to auto everything from start to finish. There were only 2 battles I could not auto, the creepy doll and I think one of the bosses in the campaign. The rest I could auto. It's all autoable, but if you want to clear a stage sooner, you can manual it. And having that option is great. For me though, if the auto didn't work, I would just level everything higher, grind some more resources, upgrade their attachments, and try again. Ended up being a very autoable game. But it has very interesting mechanics in some of the battles, so that if you were so inclined to manual it, it would actually provide you a fun challenge. The combination of this means that you could have fun manualing for hours, or you could have fun autoing it while at work or doing the dishes. My only gripe about the combat is that there's no option to automatically continue to the next stage until you lose. I often run dailies while I'm cleaning the house or driving the kids to the bus stop, and having to go back and hit continue every few minutes is unfortunate. But this isn't an idle game, so I don't really expect that. But I am trying to be constructive and not just glaze them. In fact, in the spirit of that, I'll list my least favorite thing about the game, and then my most favorite. My least favorite thing about Girls Frontline 2 is, and I know it sounds small, but the irritant adds up, is that you have to go to the corner of the summon screen to hit the X after every single summon. You should just be able to click anywhere to exit the screen. It's very annoying. My favorite thing about the game has got to be the incredible balance they struck between waifu versus gameplay. One never takes away from another to the point of detriment. Could the units be more degenerate? Yes. But it would seriously take away from the gameplay and the gravity of the story. Could they focus more on the gameplay, making it harder, for instance? Yes, but then people wouldn't be so free to spend all day in the dorm with their waifus. It really is an incredible balance they've struck, and I've seen a lot of games miss the mark here, so I'm very impressed. So my final grade is an 8.5 out of 10. Actually a fantastic game. And what could potentially get it even higher is when the honeymoon phase ends, if we still see the same kind of generosity in the form of pulls and currency that we have at launch. Many games the rewards slow to a trickle after a couple months, so we'll have to wait and see if that happens here. But I hope not. I'd really like this game to be the first one I give a 10 to, but only time will tell. But that's all for me. I'm gonna fly. See you in the next one. Bye.